I'm Jack Austin Jr. I serve as the Assistant Chief of the Choctaw Nation of Oklahoma. I was in the United States Army, full-time active duty, and served in enlisted, achieved the rank of Specialist, or E4, during my time. I actually served during the Desert Storm era. E4 is basically a ranking, governmental ranking of your rank, or numerical ranking for your rank. My actual title was Specialist. So,
my name is Jack Austin Sr. I'm Tribal Counsel for District 7. I represent the people in District 7. I served in the U.S. Army also. I served during the Korean War. Was just ending, actually. There were still some skirmishes going on over there. And I was in the artillery, field artillery, a battalion of the 25th Infantry Division. My rank was Specialist 3. That's actually equivalent to the old rankings that were as a corporal, I believe.
Our family has I guess really has a rich history of being in the military, from my uncles to all the way back to my grandfather, my dad's dad, which is one of the original enrollees for our family. He actually served in World War I, and so coming out of high school and really not having a clear direction, and talking with my dad and having that family history, I chose to join the service, and you know, that, and as well as just a sense of duty and pride for my country.
Yes, it is. It's my dad, like I said, my dad was in, and 3 older brothers, and you know, this kind of felt like a family tradition, obligation. When the time came to serve, well, wasn't no question I was going to enter the service. Well, actually, when I said the skirmishes were breaking out over there, most of the main fighting had been stopped, supposedly. So it was just mostly, we set up our artillery battalion there, and there were some things that happened, but we weren't there long. I was come back on a station at Schofield Barracks in Hawaii for the main of the service, and I was telling Brent that wasn't a state then, it was overseas duty. And it's when I served back in the 55 area there on up.
It was actually, our unit stationed overseas in Germany with the, been the 1st and 36th Field Artillery Unit in Augsburg, Germany. And our unit, pieces of the unit had been deployed, and we were gearing up to deploy. We'd actually, because I can remember very vividly being all marched, our post being marched down to the one gymnasium on the post, and all of us being lined up for all of our shots and all kind of lab tests taken on us, and all that good stuff. And so it was, we actually pulled more probably duty around base, and we actually had, at the time it wasn't even known as terrorism, but we had terror threats in our base and all over, but of course that conflict didn't last very long. So I actually, my time to get out of the service was about the time it was ending, and we had a lot of people go over there, and had some that certainly didn't come back. Some people I'd served with, and talk to some of my buddies from time to time that I'd served with still about those guys, and modern day technology of Facebook, keeping in contact with them kind of as a semi-support group, I guess, so to speak, about those days.
No, he didn't really. He didn't talk about his service much, and he didn't share that with us. But personally myself, at the time, to be truthful, you know, we just went because we felt obligated to serve our country. But now since I've heard the Cocker story and all that, I can relate where that would bring that out more. being proud to be a Native, because that's just something that Native Americans always have done. They've got the highest percentage. I've heard the general speak down here at one of our ceremonies one day that Native Americans have the highest percentage that are willing to go serve their country than any other race. And I guess it's just when you're a Native American, you have that feeling.
Well, and one of the things too about your dad and my granddad is that I think for both of us, and we've talked about it different times, and is that he served like many of our tribal members did serve before they were ever a citizen, considered a citizen of the United States. And I think for, we've had that discussion before between the two of us, and how just that pride of, he didn't have to do that. I mean, he wasn't even considered a citizen, but still volunteered to serve. And I think that's one of the things that I'm most proud of for our family and serving the country is that, that honor of just serving. And I think that, as our family, that's one of the first probably examples of that servant leadership for us and our family. I would say it's all. I don't know that I could prioritize it. It's I think it is a pride because as a Native person and just the things that we have went through historically, but we still choose to serve this great country. And I think from a family viewpoint too, I think it's also a sense of pride as well. I know, like I was mentioning earlier, had a lot of family and that had served various branches, whether it's Army, Navy, Air Force. I think we've touched every branch, I think, but my dad and I were talking one day, I think we've had somebody in every conflict that we could go back to my grandfather. And so just really neat and from a historical perspective.
There were other tribes that I served with. I remember there were some Sioux, seemed like Comanches, and there was different tribes that I saw nothing that was negative about it, really. I was just treated as a soldier like the rest of them. The negative part was basic training, probably. That's quite an ordeal to go through, getting ready to go, But it was something my brothers were awful helpful on that. They said, one thing they told me, and I'll never forget it, was don't try to buck the system. You can't win. I was in there with people that tried to buck the system, and they was on KP digging holes and walking guard duties and all this stuff. It don't take you long to figure out they're gonna get their way with you. You're just there to you might as well. They're gonna teach you discipline. They're gonna teach you things that'll save your life. That's the most important thing. Yeah. So I didn't see any negative thing in the service because I was a Native American.
Yeah. I would tag on to that because I remember those discussions between he and I before I left, and just kind of I recall the day I think that one of my drill sergeants had mentioned to all of us what U.S. Army stood for, which was Uncle Sam ain't released me yet. And that was very true for the time that I was in, and probably the time you were in as well. So, but yeah, they're really negative experiences, and I think it's all in how you choose to look at it, and you just drive forward and get through it.
We've discussed different things. We both in the artillery battalion, and I don't know where he followed after me or not, but I chose that, and I really enjoyed it. I was on a smaller gun than he was, but we have jokes about that, but anyway, I really liked the artillery myself.
I've had my nephews have came to me and talked, and we have certainly discussed the pros and cons, but not only them. It's I've talked with Kelly and Brent with our Veterans Advocacy Program, and I think it's similar with all veterans. As young men or women will seek out that advice from veterans, and just what's it like, what can I expect, and things like that, and so I know I've had those opportunities, and other veterans have had those opportunities to really paint paint a real picture, I guess you would call it, what to expect. I know I have, and I've sought that advice. I asked him before I went in, just kind of those things. And even though there was certainly a time span there, there's still some similarities. So I still got to experience the World War II barracks at Fort Sill, so during the dead of winter. But anyway,
I recall some of mine. I was living in Valiant, Oklahoma then. When I entered the service, we were sent to Oklahoma City to get a physical, and then from there they sent us to Fort Smith, Arkansas. At that time, I believe it was Fort Chaffee, Arkansas, and I entered in December, which is not a good month to enter in, because we were in the snow over there. We bivouacked out in the snow. We trained in the snow. It was a big adjustment, believe me. We were getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning, and we were eating chow with probably 300 or 400 men at a consolidated cafeteria. We were pulling KP, was washing pots and pans, which I'd never done before, and we were doing a lot of things. And when that sergeant hollered, boy, you got where you reacted right then. I mean, it was just like having another parent, only a lot stricter, and one that would cuss you out and stand right nose to nose with you and spit all over you when he's cussing you, and that was hard to take. But I remembered what my brother said, don't buck the system. So I did, and I did exactly what they said. You always seemed like we always arrived about 3 o'clock in the morning. I remember going from the physical in Oklahoma City to Fort Smith, and we got there about 3 o'clock in the morning. None of us knew what to expect. There was a bunch of young kids there, and we had suitcases, and it was kind of funny in a way, and in a way it wasn't, but we finally got us a bunk, they called it, and seemed like 2 hours sleep, we was up again going, and we was being fitted for new clothes. We was given, the haircut was quite an experience. I liked my hair kind of long then. I had long hair, black hair, and I was kind of proud of it. But when that barber got through with me, I didn't have any hair. He said, "Do you like that hair?" And I said, "I sure do." And he said, "Well, get a sack and catch it, because it's coming off, you know." So, man, I was peeled like a cue ball. That was quite an experience, but it was a big adjustment, I'll say, getting into basic training, coming from civilian life.
you know, for me, it's very similar to my dad's experience. One advantage I had, I think I had a high school basketball coach that had been a drill sergeant, so I was kind of prompted with that, or used to it a little bit. But you know, we'd spent 3 days. I always like to laugh and think when I think about it. You know, think about when you sign up, you're going to go on a big adventure. You're going to visit places that you've never seen, and of course, my dad he gets to go across the line to Fort Smith. I get to go just a few hours away to Fort Sill and Lawton, and of course, to arrive out there and to see that there's very few trees to come from over here, southeastern Oklahoma. There's hills, there's mountains. There's not a whole lot out in that area. It was a shock for me. We spent 3 days at the processing station waiting for all of our unit to form, and once we did, I didn't know how we were going to be transported to our barracks, and they pulled up with these big cattle cars. It's just like you'd see today. It's hauls cattle on, and they loaded up several hundred of us in those trailers, and I can remember still today, and I still remember that drill sergeant's face, and he was just sitting there very nice, talking, just having a very casual conversation. And as soon as that truck stopped and the doors get kicked open, it's a whole different world. It's people getting kicked off, and people are on the ground, and just everything's coming at you from all angles. The cussing, the chewing, the everything, and so that was an immediate wake-up call. But seems like I went out in October and finished up all of my school probably in January. So I got to experience western Oklahoma, that part in winter, which was extremely cold, and a lot of snow and ice, and but to go from there over to Germany, that was a total different culture shock. It was like my dad had said, there were some of those that did I guess like Americans, some that didn't, that had a dislike for Americans, which he and I had talked about it. He had a cousin stationed over there, and so he was able to give me a little information as far as kind of expectations. And we actually, which was kind of neat experience, the first 3 weeks I was there, they put us in what we called Head Start, German Head Start, and it was basically a acculturation class, language, the traditions, the money, just everything that to really get around in the cities in Germany. But I think probably, and I still have these papers there at the house, and this was when Russia was such a power, and I know they're kind of coming back and regenerating to a world power right now, but I'll never forget that it seemed to hit home and really become real when we were given documents. If we saw specific car license plates or any sorts of identification, identifying people as from the Soviet Union at the time, to really report those things. And it's like, okay, I'm not in Oklahoma no more. And so, but it was, yeah, quite an experience.
Probably, being around all that many people in your outfit, and meet other people, you learn to know how to get along with people, respect their beliefs, and expect them to respect your beliefs. And just the discipline that you learn in there, you learn to discipline yourself. That is important. That's important I try to pass that down to him, and hopefully the grandchildren, how important discipline is. Just learn that you treat people the way you want to be treated. That's the most important thing I brought out there.
Yeah, I would second that too. I think that's, I think those are good points. I think, of course, when I went in, I mean, I think everybody goes in gains a lot of discipline, about self-discipline, and some guidance. But I think it's also helped me to stay on task a lot of times, mission, but not forgetting the people. I remember, and I don't know if it's still over one of the roads that we used to run there at Fort Sill in the mornings, but first time we got to run it, I thought how odd. It just struck me funny, and I remembered it. It was mission first, people always, and it made me really think and dwell on it. And throughout the tribe, we have different missions that we're trying to accomplish, but at the end of the day, it's about our people. It's about our tribal members and the communities they're a part of. And so I think it's helped me in that aspect.
I would probably myself went into coaching. I love sports. I participated in them during my high school and even college. And I would probably I wouldn't be now, I'd be retired. But I would have went into the coaching profession probably. And that's been a tough road to go, I think, now.
I think that's a tough question, because I don't know. I hate to think, I wouldn't ever give up my experience in the military. But I think that I may not have the college degrees that I have. I think that I don't really know. I may just be out there just floating and getting along. I'm like my dad. I love athletics. I may eventually went into coaching field or teaching, but that is a tough question. I just don't know. I'm glad I don't have to know, because I am proud of my military background.